Hello and welcome to Keep Indiana Learning. This is part one of a three-part series on the News Literacy Project called Beyond the Scroll, Cultivating Critical Thinkers in the Digital Era. I'm here today with my co-host and partner in crime, Stevie Frank, and I'm going to let her introduce herself first.
Hi, I'm Stevie Frank. I am a digital learning coach located here in Zionsville, Indiana. I am also an education consultant, so I find myself in so many different platforms and opportunities just kind of around the state and also around the nation. And so I get to connect to really amazing people like Tim. So I was so excited whenever we got to join forces on this amazing project and really just started talking and collaborating. And then that's where we really kind of started to focus our time on this really important topic.
Yeah, and I'm Tim Arnold. I'm a district e-learning specialist with Richmond Community Schools, and along with Stevie, a digital innovation coach for Keep Indiana Learning. And today, the first session is actually entitled, Rumor Has It, Navigating the World of Misinformation. So just to start you off, to hook you in, are you looking for a way to hook students into learning about misinformation? We know it's an important topic. We know we all deal with it. Well, this thing we're going to show you today called Rumor Guard from the National Literacy Project is really something. Rumor Guard is a one-stop shop for the most current misinformation that's out there. When I turn it on today, and we'll take you out live here in just a second, but when I turn it on today, the very first one is less than 24 hours old, and it's about old storm footage that's falsely labeled. And it takes you through a series of steps to show you how that determination was made. And it shows you the type of information and the ways that you can understand that type of information so that it goes with you as you look at other bits of news or social media and things like that.
And gosh, Tim, I feel like the most important part about this is how timely it is. And so anytime, Tim's a former social studies teacher. I'm a former humanities teacher, fourth and fifth grade teacher. What I really struggled with was I was like, I find something so important, but how do I get my students to find that importance as well? And then that's where I just absolutely adore having something like this out there to where it's timely and it really gets the kids engaged. So, okay. All right, Tim, you go ahead and show around and I get to watch.
So we're going to take a look, but before we do, one last thing I want to say is this is just, we're pushing it for teachers to use with their students, but this is appealing to adults and it's available to everyone. And we all know that civility in public life is something we can all work on. And so this is one of those great answers. All right, so we're going to go live here and take a look at Rumor Guard.
So I don't know, Tim, what do you think about that first one? Old storm footage falsely labeled as Hurricane Helene. What do you think? Does that one look like a real image, or do you think that that's misinformation?
Well, based on the image that I'm seeing, because I happen to have been in Fort Myers, Florida before, that was the first indication that I wasn't looking at something real. But, you look at the date, it's timely. It was from yesterday at this point. And old storm footage. So we're just going to click on this and say, learn more, because it said it was determined to be false by 3 factors. So if we click on that and it tells us the no's and the yeses, does not show footage from Hurricane Helene, says it was earlier. The takeaway that this is called engagement bait. That's the type of misinformation this is. And as you scroll down through here, it shows you which of the 5 factors that they use to decide if something is misleading or based on false information they used. And they were able to show you it had not been confirmed. They're able to show you, oops, I lost it there. Let me go back. That there's evidence that proves the claim is false and that the context isn't accurate.
What I love about this too, and something you're going to notice as you're hearing us speak, is we're using a term called misinformation and not fake news or false news. So there's a whole, and we'll get into that in our third part webinar of this time together. But there's a reason why we're calling it misinformation, is that's something that's really near and dear to the News Literacy Project. Instead of just kind of perpetuating that falsivity of saying, oh, well, that's fake. If any news is news, it's news. But if it's misinformation, then it should kind of remove that word news even from the tag phrase. So that way there isn't that misconception of, okay, well, if that's just misinformation, then that's not right. That's not correct. But if it's fake news, then there's no such thing because news is news, no matter what it is. So that was just kind of some terminology I noticed that we were already using because we are knee deep and loving into all of the things of the News Literacy Project. So,
Yeah, the last thing I'll show you here, and it's right below where we were before, is that they actually take you into the techniques that were used, and you can click on that and get a lesson on each of those techniques that they used to decide that this was misinformation. So that's just one example of what is here in RumorGuard. And if we go back to the page, you'll notice there are hashtags at the top. So if our focus here is really on getting people ready for an election. That's kind of the genesis of why we wanted to do this today. And you can see there's an entire section on the election of 2024, but you can go directly to each of those just with a single click. And I'm sure these are things that you've seen recently. I mean, there are no surprises here. And it takes
I
you to
know.
each one. Yeah.
And that's part of it too, just seeing those timely informational events that go on and having a space and a platform that's kid friendly, I think is absolutely huge because there's so much misinformation out there. And especially when students are doing their doom scrolling and they're going through their TikToks or their Instagram and they're looking at all of this information and then they're like, well, it must be true. I saw it on TikTok. So it's nice to kind of play. So would you see this with like students utilizing this on their own to kind of do their own fact checking, or what do you think this would be best for?
Yeah, I think based on the age of the student, it could be a standalone activity. I mean, there's a little search bar up there in the top that you can search for certain topics. They're
Yeah.
going to pull very relevant things and take you through those. But if there's something specific to you or your area of the state or the country that you're interested in, go ahead and search for it and see what you find out. I think probably, there's a certain age of student that you would want some adult companionship with as you work yourself through this to answer questions. But I think there's also that time where you share, you explain, you teach, and then you turn them loose to try something on their own. And my hope would be that they're going to take it home and show their parents. I think
Oh
that's
my
great.
gosh.
You
That's so
know,
great. And that's what I love about the News Literacy Project is they've even had some wonderful and amazing infographics that can be used with adults. And I don't know if there's anybody out there listening today, but there was some information, I'm sorry, some misinformation that was presented about the pandemic and the correct ways to, get yourself prepared or, just going about your daily lives. And what was really nice about News Literacy Project is that they decided to take that under their wing and say, okay, here's some ways to, they called it like kind of like disinfect your news to be able to go through it and see, is it reliable? Is it something that, we are able to laterally read with other items too as well to check seeing how accurate it is. So the fact that they still tackle those like real world now issues, I just think it's such a huge proponent and why we are huge proponents of the Newslit Project.
yeah. So to wrap this up on Rumor Guard, which by the way is just one part of the News
One,
Literacy Project, we've got 3 sessions here. This is just one part, and we chose this one specifically because to us this is a very easy way in to hook people and to get them excited about learning these things so that they can protect themselves and just be a more educated individual in the world that we live in. But we chose this one because the timeliness of the election really makes this an important product, and we want to help people decide for themselves with these breakdowns, what is true and what is false. So if you see us here and you get a chance to go to RumorGuard, go ahead and log in and put it into that doom scroll and use some time to really educate yourself about the misinformation that you're seeing and how it's being used to influence you.
and oh my gosh, Tim, you know what? I know we're both secondary teachers. You know where I would see this as a bell ringer activity. Like as I'm taking attendance, as I'm going through, doing all of the daily things that I needed to do in between classes, like this would be the perfect space to get students to be getting logged in and even just like posting the picture and just be like, well, what do we think? If you think if it's true or is it false, and then talk with your groups amongst it. Like, what a meaningful activity to do with students. So, oh my gosh, it just came to mind. So had
And
to
we're going
share.
to get into, yeah, we're going to get into that and so many more things in the next episode. So if you saw this one and you liked it, come on back and see the next one. And we'll have more to talk about in the next episode called Campaigns and Clickbait.